The first round of the NBA draft is officially in the books, and VJ Edgecombe is your newest Philadelphia 76er. While there is plenty to talk about with what he will bring to the team, the work is not done for Daryl Morey and the front office with the second round set to take off tonight. I want to put a little bit of a bow for now on the VJ Edgecombe conversation and dive into some targets that they should be looking at with that 35th overall pick that they do possess here. But before I dive fully into that, I do want to acknowledge a little bit about VJ because talk about a kid who knows how to win over the audience right away. A pretty cool story watching him get emotional, and I do think the character level certainly played into this. We obviously went down the Ace Bailey conversation for quite some time, and shout out to Ace, who will be making his way to Salt Lake City. Can't imagine that was quite exactly what he hoped for. I am happy that the team did call his bluff. Also, sort of happy that it is not the Sixers, and they do not have to deal with whatever is to come of that situation. Instead, they got a dude that is ready to ball from day one, ready to compete his hearts out, and was quite emotional. We got this quote coming from him shortly after being drafted saying, quote, "The long nights, I lived off a generator for 7 years. I didn't have no electricity. I lived off a generator for 7 years. To see what she had to go through and just feed us, crazy." And that, of course, talking about his mom there. He got pretty emotional talking about his family, and just the number one thing that he kept harping on is, I'm ready to do whatever. Whatever the coach needs me, if that's with Tyrese Maxey, if that's with Jared McCain, if that's with both of them, I'm there to do whatever role is asked. And the quote that especially fired me up about VJ Edgecombe was this right here. Asked about his defensive mindset, and VJ said, quote, "I hate to see other people score, man. I just hate to see other people score. I just do not like to see other people score." And I absolutely love this mentality. And we do know that the Sixers were in need of sort of a pugnacious defensive-minded guard, and that is what they got in VJ Edgecombe. Now, we can split hairs and wish he was a little bit bigger. I understand that is a fair critique, and there are some legitimate questions to rounding out the roster when you do have such a guard-heavy lineup with McCain, with Tyrese Maxey, with Quentin Grimes, who Daryl Morey once again reinforced the intentions are for him to be back, although he remains a restricted free agent. It does not seem that there's any doubt that he will be back in a Sixers uniform, and I do believe that is the correct decision. We can worry about the details of how this all fits together down the line, but the most important thing is to add talent at the current time frame and figure out the rest later. And for although there's no room for VJ conversation, I did want to point this out. A good tweet from my guy, Mr. Crockbots, Chris Dybert here saying, not wanting to draft VJ Edgecombe because of a crowded backcourt and saying that he was a luxury pick. But then you realize that we just watched 768 minutes of Eric Gordon, 659 minutes of Kyle Lowry, 621 minutes of Jeff Doughton, and 384 minutes of Reggie Jackson last year. Now, I understand it was a season from hell, that everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and some of this was led by injuries there, but the point still stands that if VJ Edgecombe is who we all believe him to be, that there is a role for him on the Sixers team. And while I do wish he was a couple inches bigger, I'm willing to give that guy a crack at the top defensive matchups. Let's give him a shot, and I do think that he is hungry for that type of opportunity. We will let the rest figure things out, and we will talk plenty more about VJ leading up until the season here, but I do want to discuss a little bit of the second round targets here. Now, we know the Sixers are on the clock with the 35th overall pick, a really nice selection at the early part of the second round, and the NBA has, of course, adjusted to making this a two-day draft. That gives teams plenty of time to wheel and deal, have discussions, figure out targets, and I do expect there to be plenty of movement throughout the night, but I do want the Sixers to make a second selection here. I wouldn't mind if they move up. I wouldn't mind if they move around, but you got to walk away with an impact player, and I do think there are plenty on the board. Now, to list off a few of these targets, we will defer to my guy Jacob Moreno, who puts out this nice tweet here listing 6 names that he believes should be targets in the second round. Number 1, Brashier Fleming out of St. Joe's, which is my top guy that I do want to harp on a little bit deeper. He also talks on Maxime Renault, who's this French big man from Stanford, a double-double machine who can shoot the three a little bit. Ryan Kalkbrenner, who I'm sure plenty of people are familiar with from his time at Creighton, a really impressive collegiate year. He's real deal, 7 foot plus with a huge wingspan. There will be some limitations to his game, but I wouldn't mind taking a swing on Kalkbrenner, although not at the top of my list. There is Noah Penda, who's the only international guy to crack this list here. Kind of an interesting player, 6'7", kind of switchable. In theory, could project to be a bit of that wing guy. I'm not the biggest Noah Penda guy. Then Adu Tiero out of Arkansas here, a guy that I am a Tiero guy. That is the second on my list out of these options that Jacob puts on the table, and frankly, Fleming and Tiero are my 2 top options for that 35th pick. The only guy that I disagree with Jacob here is Janai Broom in that last slot here. That is a guy who, not only, if I'm correct here, he certainly was the lowest vertical at the combine this year. I believe it was ever in NBA history registered there. There is not a lot of athleticism in that guy's game. He does have a monstrous frame, but very little shooting touch. I think Broom will be fine. He might stick around the NBA a little bit, but that is not a guy that is on my radar here. Now, I do want to talk about the two primary guys that we just mentioned there and start with Brashier Fleming. He's, of course, a St. Joe's product, a guy that came from New Jersey, is a Philly-based area type dude, and the full scouting report we have from NBADraft.net, the NBA comparison they give is Pascal Siakam / Obi Toppin, of course, two Indiana Pacers forwards there, and the write-up states, at 6'9" with a long, wiry frame and standout athleticism, Fleming brings a rare blend of defensive disruption, floor spacing ability, and explosive upside as a modern NBA 4. Plays with a high motor and a competitive edge, constantly active as a rebounder, shot blocker, and transition threat. Defensively, he has the tools to anchor small ball lineups or operate in versatile schemes, averaged 1.5 blocks and 1.4 steals per game as a junior, excellent instincts as a weak side helper and closeout defender, length allows him to erase mistakes, recover quickly, and contest without fouling. Covers ground well and is comfortable switching on the wings or contesting jumpers in space. Massive leap in his offensive profile, Fleming became one of the most efficient and confident stretch bigs in the Atlantic 10 and arguably one of the most improved shooters nationally. After shooting just 32% from deep as a freshman, he knocked down 39% from three as a sophomore on a high volume of 4.5 attempts per game, hitting 62 threes, nearly doubling his total from the previous years. His shooting stroke is fluid and repeatable with mechanics to extend beyond the college arc. Comfortable popping off pick and rolls, trailing in transition, and spotting up from the corners, his ability to space the floor while being a threat on the offensive glass makes him extremely valuable in modern offenses. Underrated passer with clever ability to find teammates and make reads, he developed into a very well-rounded player on both ends of the floor. Possesses a 7'5" wingspan, giving him standout length to play power forward and center positions. Now, it is even a bit of a surprise to me that Brashier Fleming is still on the board after day one. This was a guy that I expected to be a first-round pick, and I'm sure that he did in his head as well. We do know that Joel Embiid has physically himself popped out to a St. Joe's game to take in Brashier Fleming. That is a pretty heavy stamp of approval that we do not see from Joel often, and my vision for him as a player is the truest power forward on this Sixers roster, especially with the doubt and likely outcome that Gershon Yabusele is not back on this team. That is a need that they have to address. And when we speak about complementing this guard-heavy lineup and roster that is currently in store on the Sixers team, a guy like Fleming is the solution to me. Now, the critiques that I've heard on him, there is very little creation ability, that he's not going to put the ball on the floor pretty much ever. And there also heard a little bit of whispers of he did not work out strong. The teams didn't love how he interviewed. There was a little bit of a immaturity factor in play there. I'm willing to overlook that because I've seen the tape here, and this is a second-round swing. This would be a non-guaranteed contract. These are the type of moments in the draft where you should be willing to take a little bit of risk, and I do think the reward is worth it with Brashier Fleming. While he cannot take guys off the dribble or is going to be a guy to create a lot, I don't think he simply is going to be asked to here. And to be perfectly honest, it's a bit comforting to me that I like that Fleming is content playing within his box of skill sets. This is not going to be a guy who's trying these wild things on the floor. He knows who he is. He's going to be a catch and shoot guy. He's going to rebound at an incredibly high rate, which is very important to the Sixers team. A rebounding percentage right around the 20% mark, which is incredibly enticing from a big man prospect there. And a guy who you can even squint and look at as a wing. He's going to be a bit of a tweener between that big man and wing kind of conversation there. But those are the type of players that I think these Sixers are in need of. Now, second on my list of second-round targets here would be Adu Tiero here out of Arkansas. And to dive into his scouting report that I did want to pull up here, that it writes, Tiero is a powerful wing/combo forward who has awesome physical tools and has been on a nice upward trajectory over the past few years, becoming a more complete player and contributing on both ends of the floor. He's a standout defender, rebounder, and energy player who does all the dirty work and plays within his role. He's got elite athletic tools and will be able to hold his own physically at the NBA level from day one. He's an awesome above the rim player and a good play finisher. Attacks the glass on both ends and is one of the better rebounding wings in the class. He's not yet a very good three-point shooter, but he shows some promise and there's a chance he develops into a floor spacer. He's good from the free throw line and the shot definitely isn't broken. Although his game is still unrefined, he's got the type of tools and upside that will be intriguing to NBA teams, and the comparisons that is written out is Taurean Prince with a little extra bounce. Now, for Tiero, this is a guy that I think fully falls into the archetype of wings, and that is something that's a bit missing on the Sixers roster currently. I love the rebounding rate. I love the energy, the work rate that he plays with. That when you flip on an Arkansas game, you see his effort level sort of popping off the page there. And there will be things that need to be refined. I would say Fleming is more of a win now impact player, but I would be completely content walking away with a guy like Tierra, whose work rate I do think does tell the story. And that sort of effort level is something that I think the Sixers have been cognizant to. That when you look at the track record of draft picks in recent years, there does feel like there is this culture trying to be instilled where it's hard workers, good character guys that are ready to compete their tails off. That has been something that has been missing within the Sixers organization for several years. And I do think that this foundation that has been built is really starting to establish itself. That there are good character guys ready to work hard and compete on this Sixers organization. And I do think that that brings out the best in everybody here. So still a huge night for Daryl Morey ahead. I would be 10 out of 10 thrilled if he's walking away with either Brashier Fleming or Adu Tierra there. We will see. Ultimately, there are other names on the board that I would not be up in arms about. If they want to go the big man direction, take a swing on a guy like Kalkbrenner or Renaud out of Stanford there. Those are options that I can talk myself into. My clear preference, my 10 out of 10 A+ grade for tonight is if they do walk away with either Brashier Fleming or Adu Tierra, with Fleming as my clear preference. But do want to hear from you guys in the comments. Do you have other names you want to throw in the mix? Guys that you would be fired up if the Sixers do walk away with, or names that you would be completely out on? Would you be out on the Kalkbrenner experience there? I'm a little surprised. I thought the Celtics were going to take him with the 28th pick. That was sort of my expectation coming into things. They ultimately took the upside swing, went in the international market and grabbed Hugo Gonzalez there. A lot of moving parts around the league right now. So exciting times for the Sixers basketball team and the NBA in general. It's going to be a fun second round of the draft tonight. We will be back. I will be back reacting live once that pick does go down. So make sure you guys are tapped into that and smashing the subscribe button to stay in the loop here. Hit a like on this video if you have not already and drop your comments below. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.